Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny along with Kenny Squared. This is Sports on the Positive Tip. We have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Here is our opening, Kenny. JD Martinez and Anthony Rizzo. JD Martinez and Anthony Rizzo both are still without big league jobs. Are both of them done?
Yeah, I think at this point, like if someone didn't pick him up by now, especially the few injuries, that no one's picking him up.
Yeah, because they would also need time to ramp up, I would think, too, right? So let's say a team signed them today, they probably wouldn't play for at least 2 weeks, especially both those guys, very big guys and a little on the older side. I'm surprised though. I'm surprised more with Rizzo than with JD. JD, the second half of last year looked like he was kind of done. Um, but Rizzo, I'm a little bit surprised. David Peterson pitched a complete game shutout last night against the Washington Nationals, six hitter. Your thoughts on the complete game? I thought I was watching a game in 1985 as opposed to 2025. Your thoughts on the complete game being kind of a thing of the past?
Um, Trivia question. I think it's since 2000. You know who has the most complete games still in baseball? Or maybe
Wow.
2010. Roy Halladay.
Roy, oh my gosh, the late Roy Halladay. Wow. Wow. I guess that puts it all in perspective. Um, Did you see that catch by Denzel Clark of the A's?
That was insane. It was Torrey Hunter had tweeted about it, saying that he knows about good catches because obviously I think with him the
He made a
that
lot.
one All Star game that he
Yeah,
made the where
yeah,
Rob buried Bonds, but
yeah, yeah.
um obviously a great defender. He's like, I know one that was probably the best I've ever seen. So props to him.
I can't believe how high he jumped and he climbed the wall and then he brings his left arm around so that, he holds on to the ball. It was just an amazing, amazing catch. The Stanley Cup final, we'll chat a little bit about that, but it ended game three with a full scale brawl. And I'm wondering why the Panthers, and I couldn't tell who started it, but I wonder why the Panthers would want to wake back up the Edmonton Oilers after they played the most complete game of the finals. I don't know if you caught any of that.
I did not catch any of that.
Yeah,
That's still wild.
just crazy. I don't know why they would want to even consider waking them up. Kenny, real quick, because we have a lot of basketball to talk about, but this we could just talk about now because it's going to be a story over the next few weeks. Kevin Durant. I mean, and it looks like the most likely destination is starting to look like Minnesota because I think that straight up him for Julius Randle, the salaries fit, and apparently him and Anthony Edwards are really, really close. Uh, what do you see heating up here with Kevin Durant, and should the Knicks get in on this?
I was gonna say, please don't go to the next. It's 5 years too late. You should have came with Kyrie
Yeah,
and Zion for them.
yeah.
Obviously, no, that didn't work out.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I kind of thought you'd feel that way. We'll see. There's going to be a lot to talk about with that coming down the road. All right, we're going to talk some Thibodeau. That's what we're going to spend a lot of time on. We'll talk a little finals. I watched most of that game last night, and we'll talk some baseball and the amazing, amazing first couple of months of one Pete Alonso. You ready to get this going?
Let's get into it.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Lots to get into today, Kenny. We're going to start right here with Thibodeau. Now, I'm just going to say, I'm going to talk for about a minute here, and I'm turning it over to you. I think that the Knicks, who had gained a lot of respect over these last few years, I think in the thousands, in the 2010s, I thought that the Knicks were probably looked at by the league as a little bit of a laughing stock. They changed coaches all the time. You had all the drama with Isaiah Thomas. And I thought they had really righted the ship the last 5 years. No drama, very, very little, just winning, just building, getting to the conference finals. Then they fired Thibodeau. Okay, we got over that. But now the search, Kenny, has taken all these turns, and I just wonder there's all these guys that are available that aren't under contract. And I think it hit me a little bit more last night as I'm reading in Bleacher Report, I think I read, where Atlanta turned them down. So they knocked on the door to see if Quinn Snyder would be available. The Bulls turned them down. They knocked on the door to see if Billy Donovan would be available. Now, Billy Donovan, I think, is a great coach in college, but that hasn't totally translated to the NBA for him. He's bounced around a little bit, actually. And then, of course, we had Houston. There's no way they're going to let Ime Udoka go. He's turned the whole franchise around. And then Minnesota with Chris Finch, nice coach, but of course it now centers around Jason Kidd, who we really like. But my goodness, now are you going to keep knocking on that door? Because Dallas said no. That could get kind of ugly. The league doesn't like the Knicks anyway. They think that they tampered with, and they did, I'm sure, with the whole Jalen Brunson thing. Then they had that thing with Toronto. I mean, and so I'm going to keep quiet now because I'm thinking, you've got Mike Malone, you've got Budenhauser, you've got Frank Vogel, you've got some pretty good coaches that aren't under contract that you could be talking to, and you're knocking on all these doors. And to me, some of these coaches are just kind of mediocre, maybe a little bit above mediocre. I mean, Quinn Snyder was great with Utah. They never got to the finals, though. And Atlanta, where were they the last 2 years? So I'm going to keep quiet. You said you've got a lot of thoughts on this, so let's hear them.
Well, I'll start with this analogy. It's a slightly crass, but it works, I think. Let's say it's like we're both married, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, let's say like a guy who's married decides out of nowhere that his wife is ugly and he's divorcing her. And then he's single and looking around for his next wife. But instead of like going on like dating apps or like going to places where you can meet single people, he's going up to other married men and saying, "Hey, can I date your wife? Can I date your wife?" Like that's what I feel like the Knicks are doing.
Yeah,
Um, they
yeah,
have now been rejected by 5 teams
yeah,
interviews for like their head coach. Um, now, and I don't blame any of those teams. Like obviously, I think out of all of them, I think you said it really well. Out of all of them, the only one that's probably like a significant upgrade from Thibs is probably Udoka. And why would Houston get rid of him? And why would he want to leave Houston? They were the second seed last year. Um, they'll definitely be high on the Giannis sweepstakes if that
yeah,
actually happens.
yeah,
Um, so like I get Jason Kidd. I think that Jason Kidd kind of makes sense because he's got the New York ties. He he coached Jalen Brunson and he also coached Giannis. So it might be like a way to try to lure Giannis to New York. So I get that one. The other ones I don't get. Um, but I think the Knicks really have to like first. I think what um, this sniffs Dolan all over it, and that's a problem because he's really stayed out of a lot of the headlines. Like you haven't heard him really meddling a lot, but like it's more and more becoming a thing that he's the one that really pulled the trigger for the firing of Thibodeau.
mm,
And like I still don't love the firing, but I get it because you do see the pattern of a guy that builds the culture but can't get the team over the hump. We
yeah,
talked about that a couple weeks ago.
right.
Um, but now this is a very critical head coaching hire, not just for this era of Knicks basketball, but like we see it all the time. Windows close very quickly in the
Yep,
NBA.
yep,
The Knicks window is going to be wide open next year, assuming they kind of keep this core team around. Um, we I kind of said this last week, but like you look at the East, if Giannis goes to the West, I mean, even if he stays with his team, like Dame Lillard's hurt, so it's going to be hard to do stuff there. Jason Tatum is going to be out for the full year. Yes, you still have Indiana to worry about, but I think when you look at like, and obviously the Cavs are still really good, but like the Knicks have a very great opportunity next year to try to win a title. Um, that's not guaranteed in the 26-27 year
Yeah.
where Tatum will be back, where you might get another free agent or two that decide to go to the East versus the West. So like I think that they really need to like whoever the coach is, it's going to be like title or bust.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
something that I heard Evan Roberts say, which I didn't really think about, but it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes the best hires are the boring ones.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you look at Oklahoma City with uh with their coach Daniel or however you pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a high profile mover shaker type of hire,
Hmm.
and it's worked out well. Like
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Yeah.
down 2-1 in the series, but like they're still in the finals,
Right.
and they won
68 games.
how a billion games this year.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so, I think that the Knicks. I think that the right move in that case would be Johnny Bryant, a guy that has coached under Thibodeau for a while, so he kind of knows the culture. He also was assistant with the Cavs last year. I think he can bring a new philosophy without completely overhauling. And I think that might be the move. But like, can we start going after guys that actually like want that next step, whether it is other assistant coaches, whether it's guys that are out of the league, like you said, a Malone, Budenholzer, like whoever, like I just don't get what the plan is.
Yeah.
Because it kind of just seems like they fired the coach without really a plan B. And obviously, like you don't fire your coach and then know immediately who you're going to hire most of the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but like it kind of seems like they're just like we fire the coach. Okay, now what do we do? Oh man, we don't have a good successor, and let's just start like asking people if they would want to coach the Knicks.
Yeah.
Um, like, are they going to try to now ask Pat Riley if Spoelstra wants to coach the Knicks? Are you going to try to get Pop to sit in a wheelchair on the sidelines? Like, what is
Yeah.
the plan?
Yeah. I don't even think Pat Riley will take that call. You know, I mean, he was like, yeah,
Nah,
really? Yeah. You know, um, I love what you hit on there because I like that you said sometimes those hires might not be the splashy one, right? And I thought about the Mets, and we talked about Carlos Mendoza a little bit last week. He's just developed into this great. I think he's going to be a great manager for a long time. And remember, Joe Madden was out there, Mike Scioscia. There were a few guys at the Mets, I think, at least kicked the tires on that. I was like, wow, you know, or we thought that Craig Counsell would maybe follow David Stearns here. Um, and it turns out, you know, when they hired Mendoza, I was like, what? We're poaching from the Yankees again. You know, that did work out with Willie Randolph, I thought, for a few years, you know. And so maybe Johnny Bryant is the way to go. And because it was a big deal when they lost him, and you know, he was very close to landing the Phoenix job. And maybe he's the right guy though. You know, maybe he's his continuity there, but maybe he helps get them over the next hump. I don't know. I mean, certainly you have to any coach that comes in, right? They got to keep Rick Brunson on the bench there, right? I mean, you can't let go of the dad of Jalen's dad there. Um, you know, now I have a little bit of a different feeling on Mike Malone than I first did as and I we had you and I had talked about that, and I sent you that article about how he never let it go with the GM, how him and the GM fought because we were scratching our heads. How did they fire him 3 days out? But there was some tension in the locker room, and then it was more, you know. And I applaud the owner because he didn't take sides. He fired both. He fired both the coach and the GM with 3 games left. You know, he's like, okay, I'm tired of this. Both of you are out of here. You know. Um, but I mean, there's no doubt in my mind he's a championship level coach. I mean, Denver before they won the championship, they were right there every year. You know, they were even in the semifinals or in the they couldn't beat the Lakers. I remember for a few years, and then now like the Lakers can't beat them. Budenholzer, I just don't know why he would only last a year in Phoenix. Is that just a owner with an itchy trigger finger that wouldn't let that settle? Was it some of their star players said, "Let's get him out of here"? I mean, he had good sustained success with Atlanta before he went to the Bucks, and then he wins a title there. Frank Vogel is also, I think, a very underrated and definitely wouldn't be a splashy hire, but he's a basketball guy who did win a championship. Yes, he had LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Yes, it was during the COVID shut in and everything, but still, he had a lot of success with the Pacers. I thought the Lakers got rid of him really fast. So I think you're right. I think there's guys out there where it's not so splashy. But Jason Kidd, so I really, really like Jason Kidd. I loved him from the time he was a college player at the University of California, and he took them. They didn't get to the Final Four, but they made a lot of noise in the tournament. His couple of years, I think he stayed in college 2 years, and then he was a great pro, Hall of Famer. Um, Goes back to Dallas and wins a championship there with Nowitzki. But he seems restless to me, right? I mean, like I thought he had a pretty good setup there with the Nets. They were building something, and he lasts only 1 year, and he jumps to Milwaukee, and so he did get out of his contract. So he has that experience. I think he knows what strings to pull there. Um, and then the Bucks let him go after a couple of mediocre years, and then after he's let go, they win a title. Um, and with Dallas, listen, he's been great there. I think he's gotten a lot out of that team. I I wouldn't want to leave that team at this point. I mean, maybe he doesn't like the GM now, and I know that the guy that a lot of that behind the scenes stuff was about with Luca, the fitness guy. They fired him behind the scenes, and he's now the head fitness guy for the Knicks. So there's the kind of also tie in there. Yeah, I don't know if you knew that.
Why?
Yeah, I don't, I don't, I don't know. Well, so the way I read the story, and will apologize to the audience in advance. I have no idea what his name is or remember it. But there's plenty of articles out there about it, right? And we talked about this because we were scratching our head as to why they would trade Luca. Um, the fitness guy wouldn't allow Luca's people to come in, right? We've seen that over the years. We talked about that with Tom Brady and everything. And he felt like Luca just did not do the work. He didn't put in the work, and he was kind of rogue, and he wouldn't listen to the training guy. And most of the time there, uh, aside from Jason Kidd, a lot of the people in Dallas didn't back the fitness guy up when it came to Luca. It was like, yeah, just lay off the guy. Um, but Nico Harrison was like, he's got something here. And then the owner, not Mark Cuban, said, you know what? I want to keep this player here. We're gonna fire the training staff. So they not only fired him, but I think most of the training staff. And but Harrison also didn't see a change in Luca's conditioning. And so thus, of course, now we know that's what really led to him, making a trade that I still think eventually will get him let go. Um, but the Knicks picked him up. And so I don't think he's has a reputation of being bad. Now he was there for a long time in Dallas. That was the other thing. And he was well liked. But the way he was speaking up about Luca was what was all. So there's that tie-in. But there's no guarantee with anybody, right? Again, Joe Torre wasn't the splashy hire. Joe Torre was a scratching your head type of hire when they brought him in. So you just don't know, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't think we'll know it because Leon Rose never speaks in front of the media as to what exactly do we see in Jason Kidd, other than the tie-in with Jalen Brunson. Um, again, if they would hire Jason Kidd today, if that announcement came across, I'd be okay. Let's go. But now they would hire Jason Kidd today. They had to give up a number one draft choice to get him and maybe a player, because that's what it's going to come down to, right? If they really continue to pursue this, and either it's going to come down to tampering, or they're going to have to give them some compensation in order to get Jason Kidd. Your final thoughts, and then we'll move on to the finals.
Um, Yeah, I don't know. And I get also with Kidd, um, he's kind of been the guy that's had to answer the question every single day of why did you guys trade Luka Doncic? And like, I get that that's got to be annoying because like, imagine like your boss making the dumbest decision ever, and then you have to answer the questions like, I don't know what he's doing.
Right.
Um, but also like, yeah, I don't know. Um, I also see here there Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown are other guys that they're potentially looking at. Like that's it. Okay, so I think one of two things could work. Either getting someone that's like you could tell they're significantly better. Like if somehow you land Jason Kidd, maybe that'll work. But like or if you do like a Mike Malone or someone like that. But I feel like there's like a guy like Mike Brown doesn't excite me. And not in a way of like Johnny Bryan or anything. Like I just feel like he's not that good of a head coach. I don't think he's better than Thibodeau.
No.
Um, and like we don't need a guy that's like a veteran head coach that's been there because we had that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we need a guy that's an
Yeah.
upgrade.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd be an upgrade.
Yeah. I saw both of those. At least they're not under contract, right? Um, Jenkins doesn't excite me. I mean, what did Memphis do? Memphis should have been a lot better than they were. There, I mean, he definitely they were consistent. I think he was there for 6 years, and they were consistent. They were good. Uh, but the whole John Morant thing, I mean, I question his influence, on Morant, and not only that happens once, but it happens twice. Now again, he's his own guy, so maybe he just don't listen to any head coach. I don't know. Um, but Memphis fell apart after Jenkins left. It was almost like, remember, I said, hey, I think they're gonna give Oklahoma City a run, and Oklahoma City touched them 4 straight games. Um, so that doesn't excite me. Mike Brown, I think Mike Brown's a good coach. I don't think he's a championship coach. And now he's another one I think has been fired a little quick in some places. I thought he turned Sacramento back around. I thought they got rid of him pretty quickly, but is he a better coach than Thibodeau? No, absolutely not. Not in my opinion. Um, Neither one of those guys. So we wait. We wait. This sounds like it's going to be a long process. It sounds like this is gonna be a while. All right, let's go to the finals real quick. I gotta tell you, Kenny, I don't feel so bad now watching the Pacers. Now game two Sunday, OKC just from start to finish was the dominant team. But here's what I saw last night. OKC is confused by this Pacers offense, just the way the Knicks were confused, because the Pacers move the ball around so well, and they're just helter skelter at times. They're herky jerky. They're whatever analogy you can come up for them, because I think Halliburton is that type of player, and Siakam is more of a steady player. But these guys that are on the wings for them, you just don't know what they're gonna do next. Neesmith, Nembhard. Um, oh, what's the guy's name who had a great game last night? Satharin, Matherin. Sorry, Matherin. I mean, they're all kind of the same type of player. TJ McConnell, they're just so herky jerky. They don't have a lot of size. So you would think these Twin Towers, and Holmgren had a really good game last night, but and so did Hartenstein, but not the. You would think they would be dominating them because they really don't have any traditional big guys. But this Indiana offense, when it's clicking, it doesn't look like it's clicking. It is. They're just one of the oddest, but yet most fascinating teams that have come along here in the NBA for a while. And I think they have OKC a little bit on their heels here. What say you?
Um, so I feel like public enemy number one for the Knicks is Trey Young, right? Would you agree?
Yes. Yes.
And like, I kind of want public enemy number two to be Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
He's really hard to not like.
Yes.
Uh, and yeah, OKC has had everything so easy this year. They breezed through the Western Conference like it was nothing. Um, like their only hard series was against Denver,
Right.
which
Right.
Denver is kind of more set up to be a good team to take them down. But like also SGA has played well in this series and it hasn't really mattered.
Yeah.
Um like I think it's a I think everyone is continuing to fully over or underestimate this Pacers team. Because everyone's like, oh yeah, this will be OKC in five. I called a sweep. And
Yeah.
this series is at least going six. Or
Right.
the Pacers could win it in five,
Yeah.
which would be wild.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, game four is a huge game. OKC goes down 3-1. I mean, only one team has come back from that, but
Yeah.
that's still insane.
I, you know, it really is, and I thought about what you just said, how they, Denver gave them a run, right? But I think you and I have both agreed there wasn't really a time that we thought Denver was going to win that series. Even though because the games that they won was sort of last minute, um, and then they blew them out in Game 7. I tell you what, though, for OKC, one of the keys that I saw last night is Jalen Williams has got to wake up here. I mean, he's just firing shots from all over the place and missing all over the place. And they need that solid number two, which he's been all year. If they're gonna just compete with the Pacers. If you ask me to describe the Pacers, I just can't do it. They're just full of all of these very good players. I don't think they have a superstar. I think that Siakam is an excellent player. I wouldn't say he's a superstar. And I think that Halliburton is an excellent player, but not a superstar. But everybody else is just very, very good. And this is unfold. This is going to be really interesting the way it unfolds. You're right. Game 4 is going to be must-see TV. It's going to be fascinating to see how OKC responds here and on Indiana's home court. So it's going to be so interesting. Um, I have a question for you because we'll just spend a couple of seconds on hockey here. It's 2 games to 1. Florida dominated. I got to see some of that game. Florida dominated Game 3, and they looked like Florida, a team that hits hard, that is just constantly moving, and they're hard to keep up with, And you see why they've been so good now. Third straight trip to the final. I'm going to respect that and call it the final, even though on the record I disagree. But I, you know, it comes to mind because the big story also here in New York is that the Rangers are about to trade Chris Kreider, and Kreider has been the heart and soul of their team for quite a few years now, and their best player. And they hired a coach, and Larry and I were talking about this yesterday because they hired a coach that didn't come here for a rebuild. And it almost feels like if they trade him, and they're looking to peel off some of their other stars like Keandre Miller and a few others. And, the Rangers always seem to get good value back. But my question to you is, Kenny, what are the signs that a team should rebuild? Um, and I ask you this because I see a few teams. I think I mentioned this last week. I think Miami should rebuild totally right now, right? The Miami Heat in the NBA. The other team I think that should totally tear it down and rebuild is in baseball, and it's early to do that now. But they've lost, I think, now 9 of 10. You asked me about Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge. To me, there's no conversation yet, because Aaron Judge is the best player on the best team in the American League, and Raleigh is the best player on a very, very mediocre team. That seems to be a team to me that seems to be in need of a rebuild. But rebuild can be such a negative word. What are some signs, Kenny, in your opinion, when a team needs a rebuild? And I'll just add this caveat. I know the Rangers didn't make the playoffs last year. I just don't think, I think there's enough talent there. And again, being a novice hockey guy, I think there's enough talent there that they don't have to rebuild. And that coach didn't come here for a rebuild. That's a championship level coach that you brought in here, Mike Sullivan. And I don't think that he came for a rebuild. And Larry validated that. What are some signs that team should rebuild?
I think one of them is Like if your team hasn't won in a minute and hasn't like been to the playoffs in a while, and you're kind of in that like we're always 500, we might be a couple games over, a couple games under, but like you're always kind of mediocre. At that point, I think it's important to rebuild. Like a good example of a team that I think needs to rebuild, but isn't, would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. How many times have they been 9-8 or 10-7? Like you're good enough to like
Great example.
maybe make the playoffs
Yeah.
or maybe miss the playoffs by a game, but you're never good enough to actually compete for a championship. But then you're also not bad enough to get a good draft pick.
Yeah.
I think when you're in like that kind of middle of the road, when you're there for a while, because like obviously if you're a bad team, it's not you're not going to like all of a sudden become title contenders overnight. But like if you've been in that zone for a while, I think so. Um, I think also if you've had a guy that's been like the leader of the team, and it just doesn't seem like he is a number one type of guy, like a guy that can kind of be the face of the franchise. Like I think you mentioned Seattle. I think that's a good comparison because uh, Julio Rodriguez is really good, but
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like he's gotten better. Like I would argue that this year he's not the face of the franchise. It's probably Cal Raleigh.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think like if you have also that aspect, it's important. I will say this: teams typically rebuild at when it's too late. Because like if you're looking at say a Pittsburgh Steelers, like they're not going to trade CJ Watt this year, but if they did, they'd get a huge return for
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that typically happens where it's hard. Another team that definitely waited too long would be the fun Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Yeah.
They should have traded Shohei Ohtani when they had a chance.
Yep.
Gotten two major league ready players in
Yeah.
exchange for him.
Yeah.
And because like you look at like the Nationals, like that works for them. They weren't going anywhere. They traded Juan Soto and they have three like actual major league level players as a result of it. So
Oh my gosh, yes. I just jotted that down. You make a great point. It's not a second guess on Shohei. You said that I remember during that trade deadline that the Angels should trade him. You know, he's not going to sign back there, and you were 100% right. um, James Wood, who's a local guy, from East Hampton, and I tell you, a lot of the folks that have lived in East Hampton know him and his family, and particularly his mom and dad, pillars of the community for years. He's got 16 homers, 45 RBIs, and he's batting 270. And this is really his rookie year, but I don't think he's eligible because he came up like midway last year to win Rookie of the Year. I mean, he's tracking to hit 30 home runs and close to 100 RBIs. So you've got him. CJ Abrams is still an excellent player. And you've got that Mackenzie Gore, man, who's just a top flight ace. And so sometimes the rebuilding works out. I think in baseball, we saw it very pronounced. And I have something to throw at you real quick that I don't know that you're aware of because we don't really talk about the baseball draft. I'll come back to that and you'll see my point, right? We saw the Astros were terrible for several years and now they've been, I know, bane of your existence. You don't like this, but they're still a good team all these years later. In the playoffs, World Series, they did a full on rebuild. The Orioles, another one. The Detroit Tigers have done it twice in recent memory that you and I could know, and they went to the World Series a couple of times. And now they have, I don't know if they still have the best record in baseball. They might. This morning, I didn't check the standings this morning, but they've done it a couple of times where they've lost over 100 games. I'm wondering if the White Sox and the Rockies are rebuilding. But here's my quick point, and then I'll let you chime back in. We'll talk a little bit of baseball here. Um, did you know that baseball a few years ago adopted a lottery system for their draft? Just like, oh, you knew that? Because I'm like,
yeah, it's more extreme than any other sport too.
yeah, I'm like the Rockies are picking 10th. You know, I'm not the Rockies. The White Sox are picking 10th after they lost 121 games. I mean,
The Rockies also.
the
The
Rockies
Rockies
also
will
are down there,
like
right?
next year they'll be picking the best that they can pick is 10.
That's crazy to me. I don't. I Do you ever recall? See, I don't think teams really tank anyway. I mean, we saw it kind of with the Knicks a few years ago, but it was very pronounced when a player would come in, they'd hit 3 or 4 shots in a row. That was in the David Fizdale years. He would take them out. And I remember
And
he,
that's cancer.
yeah, it's like, watch. And who was the really good player from Turkey that he refused to play, that he just was on the bench?
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's cancer.
Oh, Ennis Kent. That's right. You just said it right. I'm sorry. I'm like, why is he not playing him? He's by far their best player. And he was sitting at the end of the bench. So anyway, I think rebuilding. I think you hit it right where a team is mired in mediocrity. It might be time to tear it down. Now, the thing on that though is that will fans come out? You know, are you prepared for a couple of years of losing money on attendance, right? Uh, thus why the Mets never rebuild because anytime the Mets aren't good, the seats are empty. The Madison Square Garden, if the Rangers rebuild, I guarantee you every single game will be sold out. If the Rangers are Stanley Cup contenders next year, I guarantee you every single game will be sold out. Same with the Knicks. In all those years, we never saw the Garden half empty or anything like that. Um, so they didn't really. I thought also that was a factor where they didn't work hard enough to build themselves to a contender, too, because they knew that they were selling out either way. Jets and Giants, I hate to say this, same way, man. That stadium's going to be filled every Sunday no matter what. So um, let's talk some baseball. And uh, can I brag on the Mets for a few seconds?
Yeah, you had just said you don't know who has the best record in baseball. The Mets do.
The Mets do now, right? Okay. 44 and 24, yes. I know they're 20 games over 500 now. Um,
Yep.
this is all coming together just very nicely. And Juan Soto is playing great. He's hitting home runs. He's got his swagger back. Um, but I wasn't really worried about him. But Pete Alonso batting 301, 17 homers and 63 RBIs in 68 games. I mean, he's knocking in runs every single night. He had a big hit last night again. I mean, he's bet on himself, and nobody's talking about it now. But boy, oh boy, this is going to get interesting as we get to the off season. We're a long way away from that, and hopefully he continues. But boy, he's bet on himself here, and he's putting together a historic season. But what I'm most impressed about the Mets is that they lead uh, they lead MLB in ERA, and if David Peterson is just he's just been great, and he's an example though of kind of a no-name staff aside from Senga. I would say Senga was a star we know in Japan, and I think he's been a star here as well. But also Clay Holmes. I mean, he's been great. Griffin Canning rather has been great, and I remember when the Mets picked him up, I'm like, why'd they get him? Tyler McGill. And even with that now, you've got Sean Manaea and your guy, Frankie Montas, coming back real soon, probably in the next 2 weeks. This pitching has been formidable, and their bullpen has been just outstanding. Edwin Diaz is back to being Edwin Diaz from a couple of years ago now after a rocky start. He was the relief pitcher of the month for the month of May. He's just been lights out. But before him, you've got Reed Garrett, Bratzabar, Ryan Stanek had a little bit of a rough patch, and he's been back lights out. Jose Buto has been great. I just, I mean, I don't think Jeremy Hefner gets as much credit here, but he's taking guys that were just okay on other teams, and they've just been lights out with the Mets. So I'm feeling real good about where we're at right now. You and I have been exchanging messages about sorry, our friend Mike, but down there in North Carolina, the big Braves fan. I don't know. I mean, they seem like they got a couple of wins this week, right? I think they've beaten the Brewers now a couple of times, but they were 10 games under 500, playing terrible, and their stars aren't playing well. Ozzy Albies is batting like 230. Austin Riley is just having a mediocre type year. So uh, I think that that's been a big surprise. but the National League, I think, is wide open. The Cubs continue to play extremely well, which is great. The Dodgers have faltered. I think they're 14 and 14 in their last 28 games, something like that. They've just been okay. I mean, the Mets could have easily taken, 3 out of 4 in that series that they had last week. That was a really, really good series, fun series to watch. That's kind of my take on the National League. What do you got in the American League? What's surprising you? The Yankees, I know they lost 2 out of 3 to the Red Sox. I don't think that means much. I think the Yankees are just a better team than the Red Sox. I'm sorry. I think the Red Sox can beat the Yankees all they want. It doesn't mean they're going to get back in the race here. Um, what's your take around the American League and the Yankees?
Well, I think with the Yankees, one of their biggest issues the last couple weeks has been their offense a little bit. But like they're starting to get guys healthy. Jazz has come back and he's done pretty well. Stanton's on a rehab assignment, so he'll be back soon. Um, Really, it's going to be the Yankees will have the fun problem to have of I've got um, too many players for not enough spots. They're talking now. Ben Rice might get some catching, which he's done in the minor leagues a little bit. Um, yeah, I think it is hard because the only series that they've lost recently have been the Dodgers and the Red Sox, which like the Red Sox they always say is it's got like the bigger field, the national broadcasts and all, but
Yeah. Yeah.
more so the Dodgers. It's like I don't know. I think they probably still need another reliever, which they might have internally. I mean, look, Weaver is still several weeks away, and they've got guys that are on the IL that are working their way back, such as Cousins. Who's the other one? There's another guy I can't think of right now, but like they might need another reliever, especially like a left-handed reliever, because they only have Tim Hill and he hasn't been that great. But I still feel pretty good about them.
Yeah.
Um, you'd said the National League's wide open. I'd say the American League is wide open too. I don't know how the Astros are back in first place again. I can't stand that. Um,
The
but the
Angels already
Tigers,
won it. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's the other thing. The A's have been horrendous in like the last month and a half.
They started off well, they
Also,
dropped off. Yeah.
the Texas Rangers too have not. I feel like they've been one of the low key more disappointing teams this year.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, but like it kind of seems like it's a collision course for the Yankees and the Tigers. And the biggest thing that scares me is the Tigers have really good starting pitching.
Oh yeah.
Um, and Gleyber Torres is playing like it's 2019.
He's gonna be on the
Um,
All-Star team. No
oh yeah,
doubt. Yeah, he's gonna be on the All-Star.
like I would probably vote for him for second base for the All Star team. I haven't done my All Star voting yet, but
Yeah, I did. I did one round of voting. Yeah.
maybe we should do that next week
Sure.
where we go over our All Star ballot, and
Yeah.
I'll take some time to do it. But
Okay.
yeah, like I'm looking at the division. The Blue Jays have played better, but still, I'm not really intimidated by them. Same with the Rays, the Red Sox, and the Orioles. I thought were the teams that will be up there, and they're not. Um, like the Yankees rotation, yeah, they took their lumps against the Dodgers. They took a couple lumps against the Red Sox, but I'm not that worried about it. Max Fried is still Max Frieding. Um, I saw a video. It was Chris Rose. He was interviewing Max Fried, saying, "Yeah, like you know where the All Star game is, right? And you know who's managing the American League. Have you thought that you might be the starter for the All Star team?" Which I think he should.
Yeah.
Um, People will say Scooble, but I think it should be Max Fried. Max Fried has a .84 ERA in starts following a loss. So he has been excellent. He has been the guy that has been their stopper. So
Yeah.
I feel good about him. I think they're going to continue to do what they do.
Yeah. It's gonna be fascinating Cy Young race this year with him and Schoolboy. I think, there might be, I mean, listen, we're not even halfway over, but right now they're definitely the early favorites. Where is the All-Star game? Is it in Atlanta this year?
Yeah.
Okay. I know they finally got it back in Atlanta after they snatched it away, right? A few years back. Uh,
Yep.
Interesting, interesting. Did you see the play? Speaking of the Blue Jays, did you see the play that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made? I think it was against the Diamondbacks. Now it's illegal for you to purposely drop a infield pop up, which is why they call the infield fly rule. One of the reasons why they do that because if you purposely drop it, then you can easily get a double play, right? Well, it's a high
Yeah.
pop up. It's on the infield. Guerrero comes in and uh, you can't tell from watching it. And he makes like he lost it in the lights, but he did it so quick. It drops like to the side of him. He picks it up real quick, throws it to first, and then they throw it to second, and they get the double play. And I think you're going to start seeing that again, that play again. So I'll be interested to see if they start to put in a different even rule change on that. But if you ever wondered why they, call the infield fly rule, it's because of there were players back in the day. It used to happen a lot when I was a little kid. I can even remember Tom Seaver pulling off a triple play, I think, on like a bunt. And he looked like he was going to catch it, but he let it hit his glove and then it dropped. And you could tell he did it on purpose. And I remember they got like a triple play. So,
Wow.
yeah, they never enforced the infield fly rule back then so much, even though that's been in play for years. All right. Ready to get to some inspiration?
Yep.
All right. Well, I do have this week, but I wanted to start to look back at some of we told some amazing stories, and we're going to continue to do that. And one of the amazing stories that we told, if you remember the name Drew Robinson, he was the baseball player with the Giants who attempted to commit suicide. And it was an amazing story because he wound up shooting himself in the head, but the bullet got lodged in his eye somewhere, and he spent almost a full day in his home by himself. Um, and he was waiting to die, and he didn't die. Which we know was a God thing. And so he finally got to call an ambulance to come and get him, and he survived, and he almost made it back to the major leagues, even though he lost sight of his eye. I don't remember if it was the right. I think it was his right eye, which would have made it hard. He was a left-hand hitter, hard for him to see, but he did well in the minor leagues. Never quite made it back to the majors, and so I was wondering what he was doing now. Do you know, Ken, that he is in charge of mental health for the San Francisco Giants? And it's amazing.
Wow.
He got his counseling license, and so he's a counselor. And but for the whole organization, from minor leaguers all the way up through the major leagues, he is in charge of mental health. And what a comeback that is! He's still a very young guy. I'm sure he's probably in his very early 30s, if that. So shout out to Drew Robinson. What an amazing, amazing story. I hope I'm sure he shares it because he shared it very openly in the article that we got that from. So Drew Robinson is my inspiration again for this week.
Wow, that's a good one. So mine this week is Dansby Swanson. I had seen a video about him that I thought was interesting. So obviously he was drafted originally by the Diamondbacks and then traded to the Braves. He talked a little bit about that trade. And and I think it also shows how like sometimes being in this position is so real and hard when you get traded. Like we think of it like just, oh, well, this is great for my team, especially like that. That was a Braves fleeced the Diamondbacks on that one. But they he was talking about it and was saying that like when he was drafted by the Diamondbacks, he was like ready, like, okay, I'm full blown Arizona, like I'm here we go. And then he gets traded, and instead of like feeling like, man, the Diamondbacks or the Braves really wanted me, he felt like the Diamondbacks didn't want him. And so he went into like a really big season of depression, um, where he said like he would just like sit, he wouldn't eat anything, and then have like a tub of animal crackers by his bedside and like is like starving at like midnight and then grabs like a whole bunch of like just horrible eating habits, super depressed. And he said what helped him get out of it was that he knew that God called him and God called him for a purpose. So that kind of helped pull him out of the depression that he was in. And obviously he had a great career with the Braves and is now with the Cubs. So
Wow.
yeah, sometimes I feel like we don't fully remember, like we don't really think about like the real side of trades where like a guy is being uprooted from where he thought he would be a long time. I think of was it Wilmer Flores that was crying
Yeah.
after he got traded but then wasn't traded.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like I think sometimes we kind of overlook the emotional aspect that it takes to like, because like that doesn't happen in real life. Like you're not getting traded to the United Methodist Parish in Cincinnati like tomorrow. Like that's like not something that we typically see in our world. So
Right.
um
Yeah.
it was really cool to hear his story, and if I can find the clip, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did not know that about Swanson. I think I saw a clip or two of him talking about his faith. But I didn't know that backstory of that trade like that. Wow. Wow. Um, Wilmer Flores is having a great year, by the way. I think he leads the Giants in RBI. He was leading the league in RBIs until Alonso went on this tear. And so he's such an interesting player who's still playing, Mr. Clutch. You know, he still has the most walk-off hits in Mets history. Of all the great players that have played for the Mets, Wilmer Flores has the most walk-off hits. I want to say he has like 9 or 10 or something like that, which is incredible. But
It's
shout out to
wild.
yeah, yeah, shout out to Dansby Swanson. I think that's awesome. All right, man. Lots to talk about next week. You ready to take us home, or did you find something there?
No, I was seeing if I could look it up, but I will send it to you later.
Okay. All
In the
right. So,
meantime, this is Kenny Squared N
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. We will see you guys next week.